Alrighty. Figured. My back. Why not? Why not make a Bruins live stream? Got an hour to kill on a drive. So, you watch this in a rerun, appreciate it, or afterwatch or vlog, whatever they call it. Appreciate it. Kind of wanted to talk about the Boston Bruins after last night with their loss to the Utah Hockey Club, who I'm hoping they figure out a hockey name because I would say I like the color scheme of the Utah Hockey Club, but it would be amazing for them to actually have like a logo, a team name, not just the hockey club. Reminds me of the Washington football team when that was like a whole thing. The Boston Bruins, and this is a team I'll talk about because I'm actually trying to get back into the creative mode. So I figured why not make a video now, talk about them while I have the chance. And I'll probably make something far more edited later. The Boston Bruins underwhelmed me last night. They underwhelmed me with their performance. They underwhelmed me with the effort I saw, especially in the third period. And, overall, the Bruins, I think, are going to be a solid team. They'll be a team that's in contention. They'll be maybe in the third spot in the Atlantic, most likely a wild card spot. They exceeded expectations last year, in my opinion. I think I wouldn't be really surprised if this is the year they're like, okay, there's going to be a little bit of a transition year. I think they're still going to be competitive. They still have good players on the roster, but and they've made some nice additions. I mean, Lindholm, I really liked him as an addition. Zadorov as a defenseman, he brings a big physical presence, but I think there's just a lot of pieces missing to really make this team considered like a true Stanley Cup contender. The one thing that stood out to me thus far, very early on in this season, is the fourth line. The fourth line for the Bruins. Kostelik, he's put up some really, really good points. I don't really expect him to keep up that production. Johnny Beecher, I think he's done pretty solid. And just overall, like the kid last night, young kid, he got, I think, was his third goal of the season already in that role. I always mess up his name because I have to hear it a few times, but saw him play lower levels and he was pretty solid. But Kempe is what they say, but that makes no sense. And sometimes when someone said that, but I don't think that's. I think I'll have to hear the pronunciation again. But that kid's also impressed me. The Bruins, I feel like overall, like their bottom six has done well, but I've been underwhelmed with their top six. Oh, what's going on? Oh, wow, some people popping in. Appreciate you kind of looking into it. Hi, what's going on? Nashley, Pedrino, I apologize if I miss any chats while I'm driving. I don't want to be Jack Doherty and get into a car accident. Mind you, he was driving. He's a douchebag, but he was driving a expensive car. I'm driving a Camry. There's different levels to this game. But the one thing I've noticed with the Bruins, like the bottom six, I think have been really good, and they've impressed me. And I also believe a guy like Matthew Patra has good potential to be a solid top six center. I think he's young. I think he needs more time. I wasn't expecting him to come back this season or come back this year in his second year after getting hurt last year and just immediately start producing. I mean, would that have been nice? Absolutely. Would have been completely fantastic. But I'm not completely surprised. Like, I think Matthew Patra has all the makings and the patience and the playmaking ability, and he has a pretty good shot to be eventually a solid guy in the top six. Yeah, no, I know. I'm paying attention to the road. That's why I'm just kind of staring off into space. Don't worry. But when it kind of comes down to it, while the bottom six have done well, I've been kind of underwhelmed watching the top six with the Bruins. And, we could talk about Brad Marchand and that really rough moment he had in that game. And Montgomery kind of lit into him. And it's like, which is rare. Monty generally it wasn't that type. It's actually one of the reasons why Bruce Cassidy got, asked to leave essentially, or didn't, he was gone. He's kicked out the door because the players felt he was too harsh on him. But it is concerning how it is, and he's coming back from surgery, so maybe he'll pick up a bit more as the season progresses. But it is concerning with how, oh Jesus, that glare. It is kind of concerning how slow he looks at times. And listen, Brad Marchand's got a negative reputation, and people don't like the antics. And I can understand that. Some of the antics were in his prime, where he was like doing a little too much, was a bit excessive. But that being said, Brad Marchand, skill-wise, in his prime, was a phenomenal winger. You could argue maybe top 5 at one point, top 10, like left winger at the NHL for his position. He was extremely good. So it is kind of tough to see a little bit of a regression. Well, not even a little bit, kind of a massive regression in that sense. He just doesn't have the speed. He was never the fastest skater, but it just seems like now he's lost his step, and he just, it wasn't just last game, but even last year at times, like he tries to do a little bit too much, go through too many guys instead of making the smart hockey play, and he causes some really bad turnovers, and that's just, it's rough to watch because I can really appreciate what he brought throughout his whole career as a Bruin, but having him in the top 6 right now, I don't think that's, I think it's a little bit rough. He's not the elite guy that he used to be. And when it kind of comes down to it with Brad Marchand, he needs to be better. He needs to be better. And he's recovering from surgery, so maybe takes him a month or two, and then he kind of hits into a smooth spot where he kind of gets his legs underneath him. But as of right now, it does look like he's lost a step. But that's the big thing for Brad Marchand. And then the rest of the top 6 for the Bruins is just they're not producing enough right now. And it's early in the season. I understand that, but you need a little bit more from, like, Coyle. I mean, he was a goal the other night before the game before they played Utah, and then you just need more. I mean, Pasternak's had some goals, but he can be a turnover machine, and he took such a dumb penalty in overtime, which essentially handed the game to Utah. Yeah, the Bruins killed it off, and you could argue, they killed off most of it, and then they scored when it was expiring, but the Bruins shouldn't have had to be in that situation in the first play. That was a really, really bad penalty. And while I might get a little bit of flack when I say this from certain Bruins fans, but watching Pasta, phenomenal goal scorer, but at times how soft he can be on the puck and how prone he can be to making some really poor decisions, especially on the blue line, even on the power play. You take those 40-goal seasons all day, every day, but you just wish the puck management was a little bit better in some of the decision-making. And, the trip, it sucks. It happens. There's never the perfect hockey player, even when people consider the perfection line back in the day, like a perfect player like Brad Marchand. I mean, Patrice Bergeron, he made mistakes, so, no player's perfect, but with Pastrnak taking that penalty, it was rough. It was rough. So, I mean, I need a little bit more out of that top 6 if I'm the Bruins. If they're going to be a true cup contender, that's what you really want to see. So, I think it's the same. So, and I'll talk about the goaltending. In a second. Defense, I think defense been okay. I mean, if you only let up 2 goals technically in a game, I mean, your defense is doing fine enough. I think Zadorov, he's looked solid enough, and you have Lindholm, you have Charlie McAvoy. Maybe there's another controversial opinion, I guess, for some people, but Charlie McAvoy, such a good friggin' player, but man, some of the mistakes he'll make at times are just a little bit baffling. And do not merge. I am clearly here There you go. We're learning how to drive today, baby. I don't know why people... This guy's like swerve. I don't know. Is this guy drunk? Did you watch the Patriots game today and decide to drink himself? Maybe first time driving? Okay. Kind of scary. Driving a Mercedes, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, but, Bruins defense, I think, has been okay enough. I think there's overall defensive scheme. Bruins need to tighten up some things. The one thing that stood out to me the most, though, in that Utah game is how much slower the Bruins seemed compared to Utah, especially late in the third. Now, the Coyotes, Utah's not a traditional, or I would say a true expansion team. An expansion team beat the Bruins. They're not. They're a relocation. They had the Coyotes, and the Coyotes had a lot of good prospects. I mean, Utah isn't some garbage organization that had no talent within the pipeline. I mean, they had a lot of good, young, promising players like Goalie. Keller, you've had there for a bit. He's their, leader over there. And good young guys that you feel like at one step should have taken the next step. And maybe this is the final of the year for them. Maybe a change of scenery is good for those boys. But the speed, I mean, last 5 minutes in that third period for the Bruins, it was kind of bad with how much Utah was controlling the play. They were just doing a good deep low cycle, like out-skating the Bruins to pucks. Bruins couldn't break it out. When the Bruins did gain possession, they were so gassed, they dump it in back to Utah, who Utah then would just get the puck and go back into the offensive zone or the Bruins defensive zone and just hold the puck. And, Jeremy Swayman last night made some really great saves. He kept the Bruins in that game. So, I'm not... goaltending-wise, statistically right now it's Swayman. He's, 2-1-1 win-loss record-wise. He's had a bad game statistically, good game, bad game, good game. I think Swayman will even out. But, unfortunately, I feel like the Bruins have gotten a lot bigger. They've added a lot more size. I think, don't quote me on this, they're actually the biggest team in the NHL. With height and weight and stuff like that. So I think they added some size to maybe compete against a team like Florida, who was kind of bullying them quite a bit. But at the same point, they don't really have that explosive, speedy guy up front, really. They just don't have a lot of wheels in that regard. And you can win with a bigger, slower team, but it's going to have to be a little bit more methodical. But going into the goaltending, Sabres are 0-20 on the power play. Oof, that is really rough. 0-20 on the power play. Sabres are an organization that's just rough in general. I feel bad because they have all that talent over there in Buffalo. That's rough. 0-20. Holy shit. I know they were 0-4, but I didn't know it was that bad. Right lane closed ahead. But, to the Bruins, and getting back to that, I do think they're a little bit too slow. I think the game is a lot faster. You have a lot of young talent. Bruins aren't in the situation to be able to really add anyone. I don't have the cap space to add it. They don't have much cap space. But speaking about the goaltending and Swayman, I think Swayman's going to be fine. I do worry about Korpisalo because he can make some nice saves, but then he's just far too inconsistent. The Bruins' biggest strength has now become the Bruins' biggest strength the last few seasons has been the goaltending, and that's no longer the case. While you're going to have some Korpisalo apologists, and I really want him to do well, personally. I'd love to see him thrive in a Bruins uniform. I love it. So I'm not saying, I want him to suck because I like Swayman. I'm a Bruins fan. I want all these players to have fantastic years. I really do. But at the same token, when you look into what Korpisalo has done performance-wise the last, 4 or 5 years, there's been the occasional solid year, but, when going into the advanced analytics, he's all towards the bottom end of the league, and he has some very, very good athleticism, but when you look into the reports and the scouting reports on him, I should say, and the film, his over-aggressiveness at times can be a big detriment and cost him. And his angle, like his positioning with his angles at times, I think probably due to that aggression, can be a little bit off. And maybe that's something goalie Bob can fix. The goalie coach Bob for the Bruins can fix, right? That's always a possibility. I mean, he's done really good things with many different goalies within the Bruins organization and have had career years. So, I don't know, maybe I eat crow and Corpusalo all of a sudden has like some crazy year where he has a 915 plus save percentage, and that current contract he has, which I think is around $3 million for the Bruins or something of that nature, they cap it. Maybe it looks like a steal, but the Bruins are going to have to rely on Swayman to carry the load. And he's getting paid $8.25 million. You know, I understand why the Bruins traded Ullmark. Ullmark signed for $8.25 for the Senators. So both goalies make that amount of money. You want to invest in the younger guy who you feel like has more tread on the tires, most likely. That being said, you know, you don't have the benefit of able to interchange like 2 top 10 goalies in the league now. You're going to need Swayman to stand on his head far more often if this Bruins team is going to be looked at as a contender. But the lack of speed does have me a little bit worried, you know, and there's guys on the Bruins organization I really like, in the organization I really like. You know, I think Trent Frederick in a third-line role is really, really good. I actually like Coyle and Frederick together as like a line combination. I think they mesh really well, play like style-wise. I like what Lindholm has brought the Bruins. I think he brought us a legitimate top center that we didn't have last year. What we kind of still lack is that guy that, you know, Coyle put up production last year as a second-line center, but style-wise, with some of the guys we have here in the top 6, I'm not sure if it's a great mesh in that regard, you know. And then Brad Marchand, like, again, he has regressed. He looked like he has regressed. He's taken a step back. Would probably be more ideal if you didn't have Marchand you didn't have him in the top 6 at this point in his career. And it's not that, like, oh, he's a terrible hockey player. No, he's a very, you know, he's crafty, but he's not exhausted. He's very fun to watch, but he's lost his step. And I think if you slotted him, bumped him down a line and kind of properly put where he should be, slot him where he should be, you'd be a little bit better off. Maybe that's a little unfair to say because he's recovering from surgeries and coming back, but just as of right now, as much as it kind of sucks to say, he's not the same guy anymore. You know, Pavel Zacha, who can play center, who can play wing, you know, I like him. I like his shot. I like some aspects of his game, but they're going to need him. They're going to need a lot from him. Pastrnak, he's going to have to keep scoring goals as he is, but like outside of Pastrnak, like you need other guys in that top 6 to step up and start producing. You know, you can't ask your third and fourth line to keep winning you games. It just can't happen. Fourth line, mixture with some of the third line with the Bruins, those lines have been the best this year, thus far in this early season in comparison to the top lines. And that's something that, you know, it's early, right? I'm not going to just be like, you know, throw the season out the window. It's all trash. I'm not going to say that, but you need to see a little bit more chemistry built. I think Lindholm just got here, so, and I do actually like what Lindholm's brought with the Bruins, so I think things will get better as chemistry is built. I thought, like, when Lindholm and Pastrnak have played together and they've kind of missed a few plays, I think just over time that's just going to build more chemistry. Lindholm as a center, kind of understanding where his players likes the puck or like how the player likes to set up usually. It takes a little bit of time to figure that out. But I would say as of right now, as currently constructed, I think the Bruins are definitely a playoff team. I just don't know Like, are they better than Florida? I wouldn't say so, because Florida has had their number. I mean, Florida beat them even without two of their best players in the lineup. Are they better than Toronto in the regular season? Maybe. I mean, that's maybe a push. I'll say there's a little bit of bias there, because Toronto, who I picked last year to finally get over the hump, they just find ways to lose games in the playoffs especially, so it's hard for me to even really take them in that light. But, they'll be in that conversation. Oh my God, that is like a big player. Jeez. Tampa Bay Lightning, they've looked pretty solid to start out the season. They have an elite goaltender when he's healthy, in Vasilevsky. They have a bunch of talent there. Yeah, they dealt off, Sergachev to Utah. They've moved around some, they've shuffled around some pieces to make cap space and be compliant. Stamkos went to Nashville. They're still a very good team. As of right now, I probably would have Tampa above Boston, but it's not like I think the Bruins are a terrible team. I think they're missing some pieces, and and considering, and this is the one thing I'll say with the Bruins, I think they're kind of meh right now. I think they're a team that can play a very vanilla game, but you can be successful with that. In my opinion, you can be very successful with that. It's just they're going to need other guys to step up. A guy that I actually thought was going to step up this year, or at least kind of have some type of role, and maybe he could still have a role at some point in the season, is Fabian Lysell for Providence. For you that don't know, I actually have watched Fabian Lysell in Providence. I have a Providence Bruins season ticket holder. I'm like 20 minutes away from the Amica Center, or Amica Pavilion, whatever they call it these days. I'm used to the Dunk, the Dunkin' Donuts there. They changed. That was a cooler name. But I thought he would have a chance. Yes, he's had problems with his 200-foot game, but I think offensively he could give you something. Again, maybe there's a possibility he sniffs the big club, but when you watch him in Providence, you can kind of understand, like, yeah, he's offensively gifted, but there's aspects of his game where, yeah, he's rough around the edges. But, yeah, I mean, Markulov got a good year last year. We'll see how things go with him going forward. Just due to the cap space with the Bruins, a lot of the answers would have to come internally. And I don't know if I think Lysell could be okay enough. Is he an upgrade over what we have? I mean, at this point, he might be. But that kind of goes down to the coaching staff, what they truly believe. Is he NHL ready? Is he willing to play a 200-foot game? Is he responsible with the puck? Costellic on paper seems to be playing great with a good team. I apologize if I'm not responding as much as I want to. Yeah, Brent, so I definitely agree. I'm not trying to sound so harsh on Brad Marchand. I understand he's coming out of surgeries. Maybe it's just going to take a little bit of time. So you could say the same thing with, like, Patrick Kane when he had some procedures done, and it took him a little bit of time to get, his footing going. I am concerned with an older guy that has had multiple, like, because the year before that he had multiple surgeries. Is this just the new normal for him, I'm hoping that's not the case. I just worry if that is the case. But he's, as of right now, yeah, he looks slower. Marcus Selleck on paper seems to be playing great with a good team. Yeah, because he's impressed me. He has impressed me. I like what he brings forth. He's, a solid fourth-line guy. He's had some lucky bounces very early on in the season. But, yeah, I like him as a player. If the Bruins hit Letourneau and Costellic's a solid fourth-line guy, the trade with Ullmark doesn't look as bad. Dean Letourneau went to, I think, Boston College this year. I definitely want to see some games this year. So he's he's a few years away at the very least, unless he lights it up. He's a big 6'7" kid, so 6'7", right? Yeah, 6'7" center. similar, like Tage Thompson body type, essentially. He, it makes the trade not look as bad with the Bruins. I just wish the Bruins got another piece or something of that nature for Ullmark that could have immediately helped this lineup. Maybe that's asking too much. I understand the cap restriction, so it's hard, right? Because everybody's like Monday morning quarterback, I should say. Like, should have done this, or that. But with Don Sweeney, we really need these prospects to start hitting. And he needs to start hitting on these prospects. And maybe Matthew Poitras, that kid, he can kind of hit for the Bruins. But you need some of these top first, second round guys to actually fill in the top six eventually. Not saying like immediately, but eventually. That's kind of the knock on Sweeney. I mean, Sweeney, he drafts some good guys. Don't get me wrong, right? But wasn't Frederick, I think, was a late, because the Bruins were, had very good runs. So I think he was a late first. Same with Beecher. There's some NHL level players, but we need to kind of get some guys that are like lethal up front offensively. And as currently constructed, this Bruins team's working as of right now. While you have Pastrnak, who can score some goals, outside of him, there's going to be some games we're going to like last night against Utah, when you're playing these like little faster teams, and it might be a struggle to get some goals. It might be a little bit of a struggle, But I also, watching Utah when I've had the chance to, this early season, I think they're a young, solid team in their own right. I mean, Ingram is a stud. I mean, he was very good for the Yotes last year. He's had a very, very good start to the season. It's not like the Utah Hockey Club is some just complete garbage cans. They got some good, young, promising players on that roster. So I'm actually kind of rooting for that team to really do well in Utah. Find a good home and build a good fan base there, But second line has been awful. It's all early, but what point do they mix it up? I think why not now? Just start mixing things up. Try different line matching and see what works. Try different line mates, different combinations. There's got to be something else there. There has to be. And is it early to maybe call up a guy from the A? Maybe, but maybe you just, if this keeps continuing with the Bruins, where they'll win some games but lose some games, and they're kind of like low scoring, why not try Lysell for like a few games? Call him up, see how he'll do, and if he does well, great. If he doesn't do great, well, whatever, you tried it. See if this kid, will succeed at the next level. Because offensively, he could give us a boost. You're just hoping he's not a black hole defensively. That's the one worry you have with a guy like Lysell. But if you throw him on the wing, I think you can kind of mitigate that a little bit. I don't think that'd be as much of a worry. They kind of said the same thing last year. I know they wanted to kind of keep Merkulov, develop him as a center. I thought putting him as a wing would have been maybe a better position. I mean, a guy that I would like to see step up, who I think has all the skill and ability to do so, would be Pavel Zacha. I think, we've all seen it. If you watch the Bruins, he has a freaking great shot, very good playmaker. He got some good speed. He's got, some good puck handling. I'd like to see him take another step. I'd like to see him really kind of flirt. I think last year he had a very, very good year for the Bruins. But now that, he's kind of been moved to the wing, I think he's played center a little bit, actually. But I've seen him play some wing. I think in a wing position, you should be able to expect a little bit more from Zacha offensively. He has the tools. He definitely has the tools. I mean, the guy's got such a wicked wrist shot. Guy put some torque on that shot. I think it's, am I saying he's Pastrnak? No, but the guy's got a great release on the shot. I think there's more there to be had. But do we have this, like, Lindholm I like. But outside of him, do we have a guy that's like right now would you consider a great second line center on a Stanley Cup contending team? I wouldn't say so. We're a good team, just good. We're a good playoff team, in my opinion. But I think you most likely would want a little bit more there in the second line center role. Time for a trade. I remember Zach was a sniper of his draft. Bergeron is sorely missed. I would definitely agree. Bergeron is sorely missed because he filled that role. Him and Krejci, I mean, and people wanted to bag on Krejci for the longest time, but David Krejci was a very good playmaker, very solid defensively. Was it frustrating at times? You felt like there was more there? Absolutely, but the guy was just steady. And that's why the Bruins were so good for so many years. You had Bergeron and Krejci, but now it's a new era. And you need guys to step up. I mean, I think bringing in Lindholm's good. Now you have a legitimate top-line center. You know, you're hoping Matthew Poitras can develop into that second-line guy. That's what you're hoping. You know, I like his patience. I like his poise. But it's early to rely on a kid like that young to be like, I need you immediately to plug in and be our second line guy. He's taken in the second round from the Guelph Storm. You know, I like him, and don't you fucking dare do it. Okay. I saw him swerving. I was like, yo, don't you do it. I'm recording right now. I'll record an accident real quick. But let me okay, are you not gonna let me go over? What are you doing? I can only go as fast as the guy in front of me, who's staying in the left-hand lane when it's clearly a passing lane. I can't do much about that, Mr. Hyundai Elantra. I can't do nothing about that. I'm sorry, okay. Unrelated hockey side note. You're in the left-hand lane. It's 3 lanes. You're going I-95 south. What do? Do you stay? Oh, it's from Jersey. This guy's from New Jersey. No wonder why he doesn't know how to drive. A New Jersey license, that makes so much more sense. It makes so much more sense. You're in the left-hand lane. You see me driving. And I'm not riding. I don't get right behind people because you need to give yourself some distance to brake in case something happens, he collides with somebody. You need to give yourself some braking distance. Some people don't understand. But, you know, like you're sitting in the left-hand lane, you're going 5 under the speed limit. You're bottling things up. I'm like, come on. Now we're 4 lanes. Like, let's move over. We can figure this out. But of course, the New Jersey dickhead doesn't want to move. Sorry, just. Oh my God. Yep, we're just gonna try that. But anyways. So, driving could drink and critiques aside. You know, I think the Bruins are kind of in a transition period. They're good enough to be a playoff team, but not good enough to be a cup contender. And that's kind of a rough spot to be in because you're not bad enough to get like a really, really high-end draft pick. And, you know, you're not good enough to win a Stanley Cup or be in that conversation, really. And maybe that changes. Maybe Brad Marchand gets a few, you know, after a month or so, kind of gets his legs underneath him, kind of starts feeling more like himself, and Matthew Poitras develops, and you know, maybe they start buzzing, and this makes this live stream look awful, which I'm hoping to be the case as a Bruins fan. I'm hoping this whole take ages poorly. But the Bruins right now, as currently constructed, are just meh. They're like a good team, but you know, outside of Pastrnak, there's not some crazy, you know, superstars. You know, Charlie McAvoy, he can be very good. Hampus Lindholm can be very good. They brought in Zadorov for some size. The Bruins added a lot of size this offseason, and they brought up some young guys, a lot of size, but they look slow. They look considerably slow. And you can win. Again, I will reiterate this. You can win with a bigger team. But you're going to have to win the puck battles. You're going to have to dominate the puck possession battle. You're going to have to use that size to your advantage. If you're 6'6" and you play like you're 5'11", that's a problem, in my opinion. But Zacha playing turns him into a playmaker to try to him elsewhere in the line sniper. Hey, what's going on, John Brown? Time for a trade. I wouldn't go that quick yet. I mean, Bruins don't really have the cap flexibility unless they dealt Corpusalo and then they brought, like, Bussy or DiPietro up to be the backups, which neither of them really impressed me during the preseason this year, but it's preseason, so I don't want to put too much stock into it. Are you gonna let me merge? Yes, you are. Thank you. You're a legend. I think like that's the only thing you can really do because I got to open up cap space. That's how you would do it. But as for Zacha, so the thing is, right, Alex, I understand why they keep Zacha and Pastrnak together because they really do have some nice chemistry. You can see some really good plays together. And I'm fine with that. I just think Pasternak's not the greatest playmaker in my opinion. Like, he'll make some really good fucking passes, but sometimes he's not. He leaves you on a little more, but he's a sniper. So I mean, why are you bitching? I'm not expecting like Alexander Ovechkin to be Wayne Gretzky with the assist record, right? So maybe that's not even like a fair thing to say. But I mean, Zacha, he turns into a playmaker because he kind of defers to Pastrnak. So if you move him off that line, though, who kind of meshes with Pasta in that setup? Is it Marchand, who's kind of had his struggles? Like who would you put with him on the other wing to bring out the best in Pasta? They're both from Czech. They both have really good chemistry. I actually think having them together as wings is solid. Zacha can be defensively responsible and good offensively. But if you move him to another line, is he actually going to become a sniper? Again, great shot, has the ability to do so. But is he... If you move him off that line, does that just make that line worse and then you really don't have even one great line? But I even think out of the top line, you want a little bit more. You probably want a little bit more out of that production-wise. So, I don't know. It's just, I think, unfortunately, with the Bruins, what you have, like, as a Bruins fan, what you see with this roster is what you see. And I don't think there's going to be too much shuffling unless it's internally. Maybe who knows? Maybe they bring up Fabian Lysell, you put him on the wing, and then he becomes some playmaking machine and just, becomes like the Adam Oates on the wing, right? And just sets up so many plays and, is a nice boost and kind of helps offensively. But I don't see the Bruins looking to make a trade unless it's for a minor piece. The one guy I do think that they should have kicked the fucking tires on last year was like Frankie Vetrano. Local kid, he came up in the Bruins organization. If you've been a Bruins fan for a while, you already know that. He's always had a great shot. Frank Vetrano has always had a great shot, but he had a really good year last year. I don't know what his contract is now. I'd have to look into it. But if his contract's not ridiculous, maybe you're looking to bringing in a guy like that who's got a great shot, can kind of add a little bit of a different dimension on these lines. That's willing to shoot the damn puck, And, Frankie Vetrano. Hats off to that kid, by the way, Frankie, like, I got to say, hats off to him. Willing to kind of accept lesser roles on different NHL teams and really just kind of finally finding a home and finding himself at the NHL level. Kind of showcases sometimes it takes some time with some of these players. But hats off to Frankie V. Great hockey name, too. Frankie Vetrano. Vetrano is going to snipe him from Toronto. All right, let's merge here. But by the way, appreciate everybody kind of popping in. It was just a random live. I was like, you know what? I'm going to be driving down for like about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Might as well talk hockey, have some fun with it. But I will say this, and this is actually how I'll kind of end the live in this regard. This will probably be 5 minutes. Bruins fans need to stop with the whole Swayman versus Korpisalo. Now, I've been critical of Korpisalo. I've been critical of Swayman a bit. But I've been critical of Korpisalo because I don't think he's the same caliber of Ullmark, right? And I don't think that's crazy to say when you look at the statistics. But when I see Bruins fans in certain, like, especially Facebook groups I'm in, trying to make the connect, like, how would I put this? The connection that, like, Korpisalo and Swayman are the same tier of goaltender. I mean, it's just not the case. And it's weird. This is something I have noticed. There's a weird subsection of fans after the contract that Swayman was signed to, and you can, you agree, disagree, him being overpaid, paid the right amount. That is what it is, right? He's paid what he is. That's going to be his contract. When you look into comparison when Tuukka Rask was here, when he was getting, what was he getting, 7 or 7.2, whatever Rask. It's with this current NHL cap hit, it's relatively similar, right? It's about the same. So when you kind of have that kind of negative connotation with Swayman due to the contract, and then just start being overly negative about him, just to be for the sake of being overly negative, I think it's kind of silly. And the same thing with some of the Swayman fanboys kicking down on Korpisalo. Now, I'll call out Korpisalo on some bad goals, some poor angling, and just bad puck control, or I should say rebound control, excuse me. I'm all for calling players out when they're playing poorly. But it's a weird dynamic with the Bruins fans that you kind of went from a team that had two goaltenders that loved and hugged each other, and the fan base was all about it, all interchangeable, and now it's just some weird, since the contract that Swayman signed, it's a very, I don't know, it's very peculiar with how some fans are kind of treating it. I don't get mad at a guy getting paid. Personally, do I think he's $8.25 million? No, I don't think he has the resume of a guy like Ullmark who you could justify. He's won a Vezina. He's been in spots, in really rough spots in Buffalo, especially where he's looked like the bright spot. That being said, the contract is the contract, and this team is going to go as far as Swayman will take them. And that showed off last year. The only reason the Bruins advance past the Leafs is because of Swayman. He played phenomenal in that series. Kept them in, won them some games the Bruins honestly shouldn't have won in the Florida series. While you're going to have, look, there were 6 goals. Like there was someone like, look at the goals for. But if you didn't, if you don't watch the games, you just look at the statistics. Like Swayman played pretty damn well even in the Florida series. Was there some goals you want to have back? Absolutely, like any goaltender. But Swayman, this team will go as far as Swayman takes them. And I think Swayman has the potential to be an elite goalie at the NHL level. And now that he's locked up, you're hoping that's to be the case. And considering you have goalies like Igor Shesterkin asking for something like $11.75 million or something of that nature, something like north of maybe even flirting with $12 million, maybe Bruins fans, we shouldn't complain too much about a guy like Swayman. But as for the Korpisalo hate, I think Korpisalo was the other night. I think he played fine. He played okay. Made some solid saves. I don't hold Korpisalo to the same standard I'd hold a guy like Ullmark, who proved to me when he came here, he proved to me, okay, this guy is a legitimate NHL starter. I have a lower ceiling. To me, a successful ceiling for Korpisalo is having a save percentage around 905 plus, even 900 plus. He wins more games than he loses, and he gives Swayman breaks. He gives Swayman a break, excuse me. That's a successful season. Is he going to be Ullmark? No, but I don't think you expect him to be Ullmark. We don't have the best tandem in the league anymore. We have a very good, young, promising goaltender with Corpusello, who I wasn't a big fan of bringing in, but he can be an okay enough backup in the right situation. Geeky has been horrible. The only thing we have is our fourth line. Yeah, I mean, Morgan, you're not wrong. I don't disagree. Geeky's one of those guys that's like an interchangeable piece. He can go up and down the lineup, but if you can't expect too much out of him, But I don't know. I think Corpusello, young kid, not Corpusello. He's not young. I think Corpusello, if he's successful, has a 905 plus, has a positive win-loss record, is good. But Jeremy Swayman, for the first time in his career, is going to have to take the lion's share of these starts. He's going to have to be around 54 plus, 55 plus games. I think the whole goalie rotation should go out the window. Like, oh, we'll give him a rest. And on a back-to-back, give it to the backup goaltender, right? But, if you're going to be paying Swayman starter money, you got to be playing him like a starter. But I don't know. I've seen some fans. Oh, Swayman's way overpaid. He's this. Like, come on. It's like a handful of games. Relax. Guy's been statistically one of the best goalies in the league the last couple of seasons. He's been improving every single year. Like, come on. Give me a break. Give the kid a chance to get his foot underneath him and go. I mean, no training camp. I know we trained with Boston University, but there's levels to this thing. There's levels to this game. College versus NHL training camp, a little different. And yeah, it wasn't like he completely held out of all of team operations during that off season, but. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think Swayman eventually, and he's shown flashes. Last night he was really good. I think Swayman's going to have another good year, but be prepared to have some cold stretches because he's going to be in a situation he's never been before. It is different. Like, when you're splitting something 50-50, it's completely different. And then you're going from 50-50 maybe to like 70-30. And that's more wear and tear on your body. And it's not even just the physical aspect of the game, it's just mental. Goalie, if you play goaltender, and most guys that have played the position or understand the position, a lot of it's mental. It's mentally draining. Like, you have to stay focused. You have to be constantly in that constant state of focus that can wear you down mentally. That's why, it's a sports psychology overall as a whole is a very, very interesting field to kind of even have these conversations about. But I'm rooting for him to do well. I'm rooting for Corpusello to do well. I think Bruins fans as a whole, we should all be wanting them all to do well. But it's just kind of weird to see like some weird divide. Laura has been getting better, but it also has every game. Yeah. I think you go back to the AHL. I think at this point with Lorai, I mean, you could do that. That's absolutely plausible, but I don't know. I think he's a young defenseman, and I think if there's going to be ups and downs, defense is one of these positions that you rarely see a guy immediately impact and just hit. It's just there's cases of it, but it's far and few between. It's not like a common occurrence. Defense is one of the more difficult positions to come into the NHL and be immediately successful because there's a lot of responsibility. I think Lorai, he's got the physical offensive gifts to be very talented. Do I think he'll be like a Norris candidate down the road? Maybe, but I mean, I think he'll be a solid top four guy once he rounds his game. I think defensively, you want a little bit more there, and that's fine. But I don't think it's any room to panic. Now, if he keeps struggling. Let's say we're 15 games in the season and he's just looking like a freaking turnstile. Yeah, maybe flirt around with the idea of him just kind of being. Oh, what are we doing here? Didn't give me enough space to park there, did we? God damn it! All right, I'm gonna have to readjust this. Maybe you flirt with the idea of him kind of. Going down to the AHL, that's a possibility, but I don't think right now I'd rush and do that. Kind of let him see if he can play through it, kind of work in that regard. he's talented. I definitely think he's talented. I want to see the kid thrive. He's got all the physical gifts you really want in the guy in a top 4. He might never be a lockdown defender. I don't think that might be the case where he's just kind of like always more of an offensively gifted guy. But I'd give him a little bit of patience. Just a little bit. But I'm here at my destination. I got to get off here. I appreciate everybody that kind of popped through. I was kind of reading through Zaka, Pot turns into a playmaker. Matthew, Laura, Geeky has been horrible. I kind of agree with that. I think he should go back to the AHL. We'll see. I see. I appreciate everybody that popped through. I'm going to probably have some videos up tonight at some point. You guys have been great. Yeah, I really do appreciate it. And if you guys like these driving streams, because there's a lot of errands I have to do of the day if I just randomly talk hockey like this, I don't mind it. So I appreciate you guys checking it out. I'm going to go have some family dinner, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Look out for a video later tonight. Thanks, guys and girls.